you're starting to see a pattern. It's like he's exposing stuff in the church. He's pointing his finger on things that need to be dealt with. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. I'm the Tattooed Preacher. And this video, I just want to share just some of my thoughts around the recent news surrounding former megachurch pastor Robert Morris, who there was a warrant that was put out for his arrest, and he turned himself in, and now he faces 5 counts of SA charges stemming from incidents happened over 40 years ago. This whole story, if you've been following this, it's tragic all around. It's tragic for the victim, a woman by the name of Cindy Clemshire, who and it's tragic because, I mean, obviously, someone who suffers these kinds of things, it's life altering. I mean, myself, I've dealt with SA as a young boy, and it messes you up, and you don't really fully realize all the nuances of how that kind of a trauma can mess you up throughout your adult years. And so the fact that it happened when she was young, and then the fact that, man, like, she came forward, brought this to the church by the time Morris was, mega church level, brings it forward, and how she was basically shunned, pushed aside, dismissed. That's just so it's tragic. It shows just the ugly side of what ministry can look like, what church can look like. And so it's tragic for her, herself, her upbringing, what she's had to deal with, both from the incidents and also from the aftermath of it. This tragic for the church. The church was massive, had mega influence. And I've seen recent reports from it. I think a half the church or a third of the church is left. It just puts this massive, I don't know, strain on a church. And so they've had to deal with a lot, which is, it's tragic in and of itself. And then for Robert Morris, for his family, for his kids, I mean, this is your husband, this is your dad. That is going to create a lot of difficult family issues. And because of the high profile nature of the whole thing, it's like, man, like I can't imagine, being in their shoes. Your father, megachurch pastor, now imprisoned for this. And it's like, you got to answer to that. Everyone knows who you are. Like being his wife. It's just tragic. And then just the overall way it causes people who are not Christian to look at the church. Just puts this, it just kind of feeds the critics, if you will, which, again, is tragic in its own right. And you see different camps in social media world, how they're approaching this, and you see, especially from the reform side of the aisle, just they're coming out, clapping their hands, celebrating that he's in prison and justice is being served, which in and of itself, yeah, someone who does this stuff to a kid needs to be punished. Justice needs to happen. If this happened to my daughter, I would want justice done against the person who did it. So I understand that. But it's a weird thing to look at because it's one, and maybe it shouldn't be like this. I don't know. It's one thing to look at it, from some high profile Hollywood celebrity where something happens and you're just kind of like, oh yeah, of course. Like Hollywood's so corrupt and messed up and demonic, and this stuff wouldn't surprise me at all. But the fact that it's happened to, in the church, it just makes it, I don't know, and it shouldn't. It just makes it more, I don't know, it feels different. And it's just very sad. And it's a fine line to play versus, applauding or being happy that justice is being served, but then also not celebrating in the downfall of another who, for all intents and purposes, was a believer. And so it's this weird, it's a weird line. It kind of shows how when you look at this situation and you look at other ministries over the last number of years and leaders who have been exposed, it's like you're starting to see a pattern. It's like he's exposing stuff in the church. He's pointing his finger on things that need to be dealt with. And it's happening more and more, and which is a painful thing. But on the flip side of it, it's like he's up to something. He's up to something. And so it shows, God wants to move. God wants to, reveal himself, and especially as we are approaching the end. But he's not, God hates evil. God hates evil. And it doesn't matter who does the evil. Whether you are a Christian or you're not a Christian, he hates evil. And when it comes to his church and when it comes to his kids, God takes justice very seriously. And I just think that this is kind of creates a sobering reality here, that God's not afraid to judge. And God judged his people, his leaders, all throughout the scriptures. I mean, just go through the Old Testament, all the kings. There was, it said there were certain kings that reigned for 40 years, blah, blah, blah. But eventually, Judgment Day came, and they were judged for being wicked and evil and ruling in an unjust manner. I'm not saying pastors, church leaders are kings, but the principle is that it doesn't matter what your position is. It doesn't matter how successful you are, how quote unquote big your ministry is. Man, God's not afraid to judge, and God's not afraid to expose. And so this just creates this just sobering reality of the seriousness of what it means to be in ministry, what the serious call of what it means to be a pastor, a leader in the church, and that you're not immune from consequence to your actions. And so, yeah, it's I hope and I pray that Cindy and her family can now have some sense of closure for them, as this has been dragged on they've had to deal with this for decades. So now they can feel a sense of justice has been done. And I pray for Robert Morris and his family as well, that, man, I don't know, God would surround them and guard their hearts. And then I pray that as the church in general, that we just don't forget that the impact of this is big. And there are a lot of people affected, and there are a lot of people that this touches. And so to just do the best that we can to walk in love and walk in just with an awareness and sensitivity. So yeah, so let me know your thoughts down below, what y'all think about this. And yeah, thanks so much for watching the video, and we'll see you all in the next one. Much love and God bless.